In this lesson, we're going to be looking at JSON parse and JSON stringify. And stringify is not only fun to say, but it is super useful whenever you want to turn an object into a string, and you can use parse to turn it back into a usable object format. Got a few examples, as well as we'll take a closer look at what Mozilla Developer Network has as an example. So they've got a typical object here, and notice that this is within a string format, and when we parse it into JSON, then we have access to the object. So run that, and we see that we've got count. So instead of having it within the string, it turns it into a usable object format, and then you can manipulate the values. And the other way, going the other way around, of course, is stringify. So it converts a JavaScript object or value to a JSON string. So stringify. So we're stringifying an object. So basically it's turning it into a string. We're stringifying an array and string value, Boolean value. So turning them all into a usable format within the array, as well as stringifying undefined function with a blank function. So these are all coming back as null. So that's something to note, that as well, symbol, function, and undefined, when you stringify them, they come back as null. So instead of coming back as undefined function, because when you stringify it, of course, it has to be within a string format, and you can't have a function that's sitting within a string format. So that's where it just comes back as null. Also, if you stringify a date object, so a date is also an object, and when you stringify it, you get this type of output being created. So you can run, and you see you've got the double quotes around there because it already is a quoted string around that object. And that's how it was being returned. So we saw that within the last lesson. So of course, we do have a challenge for you within this lesson, and that is to take an object, convert it into a string, output it into the console as a string, and then take that same object that was turned into a string and turn it back into an object and output the values. So for first and last name, really simple object where we've got first and last, and turning into a string and then parsing it back into an object and then outputting the values within the object format. So go ahead and try this out. You can pause the video and I'll walk you through the solution for this one. So opening up the editor, first let's create the object, and you can contain whatever information you want within this object. In this case, I'm going to just use the first and last, creating a really simple object. So that means that if I go into my object, I can see that it's within an object format, and if I wanted to get back first, I can get Lawrence back this way, and I can also get back last because of course it is an object, so I can output those values. So the objective of this exercise was to try this and convert it first into a string, create a string, and using JSON stringify, and then we need to pass in the object that we want to stringify and console log out just to make sure that it is a string, so no tricks here. We see that now this object has been turned into a string, and you can't really do a whole lot with it. You've got no option for first or anything like that. It just comes back undefined because it's a string, it's not an object. So we want to turn it back into a new object, or back into an object, and this is where we can use JSON parse, and taking my string, we're going to parse it back into an object format. And then using the console, let's output the new object, and we're going to get first, and console log output the new object, and we'll get the value for last. So when we refresh, we see we get all of those values being output, so we can use it again. And this is really useful, especially when you need to save data or within the browser as a string, and then convert it back into an object to make use of it within your code. A lot of examples of this, so try it out.